Good evening, good evening. Hello everyone. Welcome to the lighting of the Hanukkah Menorah. This is actually the second year that we've had it at Gallaudet. You might remember we were last year at Hansen Plaza. Who was here last year and saw the lighting of the menorah outside? I think maybe we've got double the numbers that we had last year here inside. Well, I'll introduce myself. I am Sasha Klein from Europe, from Belgium. I've lived here for many years, however, almost 14 years at this point. I was a Gallaudet student, and there was not an active Jewish organization at the time that I was here. But that wasn't a problem for me. I was really getting acclimated to American culture, but I kind of got back in touch with my Jewish identity as a result of my friendship with Yehoshua Sudikoff, Rabbi Sudikoff, and I'm very pleased to introduce him in a moment, who will be leading tonight's festivities. What's important, what's special about tonight is that it brings the deaf Jewish community together. A lot of people have to celebrate on their own, and those of you who know me well, you know that we have Rosh Hashanah and Passover every fall and spring, and I go home to Europe. I don't want to be here during those holidays. And Rabbi Sudikoff was hosting some events, and he's really helped us build our community. I'm so grateful to him, and I'd like to bring him to the stage. Thank you. It is my honor to be here with you tonight. And I'd like to see a show of hands again for who was here last year. Fantastic, wonderful. I think this is actually a better location because of the lighting, the visual nature of our language. This is the second year now that we're doing the Hanukkah lighting. And what we do through this festival is add light to the world. You may know the story. In the time of the Maccabees, living in the land of Israel, there was a group of people called the Maccabees. It was actually their family name, Judah and his children. And they were fighting against a much bigger army, the Greek army. And of course, that army could not be beaten because they were strong. Kind of how people look at America today, an unbeatable army. And yet the Maccabees didn't want their land to be taken over. They didn't want their customs to change. And in fact, this very small band of believers won. And it's the power of the light that we celebrate tonight. That one little light, that one spark calls attention to it, no matter how small. So in a world of darkness, even a tiny light can pull us back on track because it's so powerful. And that's what we're celebrating tonight, is the power of that light, the power of the human spirit. And hopefully we carry that light with us throughout the year. Tonight is also special because we are unveiling a menorah. Now you may remember last year the menorah was fairly simple. Now I want you to take a look at this year's menorah, which is stunning and beautiful. And it has the theme of light throughout this artwork. So go ahead and take a moment and look at it. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this piece of artwork. When we were getting close to the lighting last year, to the event last year, I thought it would be really nice if we had a deaf artist design the menorah. Of course, by the time I had the idea, we were too far into the season to make it happen. But then we started thinking about planning it for this year. And there's a Jewish deaf artist, I'm sure many of you will know, Ellen Mansfield. Go ahead and wave to the crowd, Ellen. So I had seen some of her artwork. I had seen the deafhood themes that were in her work, and I was really attracted by it. And she has done lots of different Judaica as well that have all been attractive to me. So I contacted her, and I talked to her about the possibility of making a menorah for us for this very event. And we sat down and we had a conversation about my vision and what the meaning of the menorah is. And remember, a year ago, after the holiday was finished, we were sitting down kind of doing the after report where you think about what worked and what didn't work, and time started ticking. We're getting closer to the event for this year. And by the summertime, I had a real sense of what I thought it should be, and I knew that the theme of the power of light had to be reflected in the artwork. And so I talked to her about that vision. And sure enough, you can see the hand shape on the bottom. It's an 8, and you know, the 8 days of Hanukkah, but also is the sign for light. You can see the hand at the bottom is the 8, and the hand further up is light, because it leads to the 8 branches being lit. Just a wonderful piece of work, and so powerful. I want to thank Ellen for the hours that she put into creating this beautiful masterpiece to bring light to us. And actually I'm going to ask Ellen to come up and talk a little bit about her inspiration and how she decided on the colors and so forth for this piece of artwork, because it is so beautiful. Happy Hanukkah! I can't tell you how thrilled I am to see all of you here and to have this event that is done in ASL for the deaf Jewish community. It's just wonderful. As Yehoshua said, I spent many hours, and while I was working, I thought about my childhood. I thought about growing up in a Jewish home. And here we are coming together in another kind of Jewish home. And this is a community that brings us together. Same as the deaf life experience, the experience of being in a hearing world is very similar for Jewish people in a majority non-Jewish world. And that idea of light, hope, clarity, and strength, I think gives us the ability, the chance to understand the miracles that are in our lives, the miracles we want to see happen for our children. As I said, I revisited memories of my grandmother, and my great aunt, and the artwork that they did, beading and so forth. And I found some beads, and that kind of brought that memory. They were from Russia, which is where my family is from, originally Kiev. So to have that kind of legacy of the Jewish art, the Jewish story from back then, I really wanted to infuse this modern artwork with that feeling. And it was important to me that this be recognizable as deaf art, and I want to thank the deaf Jewish woman Hinda Casper, who lives in Rochester, who is just outstanding with doing art that is ASL friendly. And so she actually created the hands. And when we talked about the meaning of light and miracle, outstanding, spirit, story, they all have that same hand shape, community, togetherness. So I wanted to keep that hand shape in this piece. So, I mean, in terms of going in depth about the art, I'm actually going to make a YouTube video where I'll explain the whole process for budding artists who want to know. But I'll end up here and say Happy Hanukkah and enjoy your evening. So I'm not an artist, I think I've said that before, but I was so inspired by this piece, the symbolism of the power. You know how they say a picture is worth 1,000 words? I would say, you know, how many words is this beautiful artwork worth? And signs, I should say, right? Signs for you. The other symbolism inherent in this work is about hope, and the fact that, you know, the last 10 or 15 years, the Jewish deaf community specifically, I'm speaking of, has gotten a little bit quieter, and people have started to get worried. You know, is there hope for this community as a unique population? You know, there are deaf clubs obviously disappearing all over the country, so where are Jewish deaf people meeting these days? And now we're going to start that again. Don't worry, we have hope. We will rebuild our Jewish deaf community, and part of that rebuilding is going to happen right here at Gallaudet University. As you may know, this event is sponsored by the American Friends of Lubavitch, which the organization in DC for many, many, many years and all over the country. And they're having right now the national lighting down at the White House, near the White House, and Vice President Joe Biden is actually kindling the first light for Hanukkah. I think it's a 30-feet menorah, a bit bigger than ours, but I think we probably couldn't have housed something that big in here, but maybe next year. Maybe, Ellen, you'll make us a 30-foot menorah next year. Sure. So Chabad, American Friends of Lubavitch, are sponsoring the event down at the mall and also here tonight. And they sponsor activities throughout the year, programming for students. And just this past semester, a small group started here at Gallaudet to plan programs and events for the Jewish community here on campus, like Shabbat evening, dinners, and so forth. Having maybe an Israeli night, there are different programming events that are going to be happening year-round, and that's the Chabad Student Club. So I'm actually going to show you a videotape. Many of the students unfortunately couldn't be here because, as you know, the semester has already ended, but they did want to share their video messages with you. So here are messages from the Chabad Student Club members. You can see the excitement, right? So what we're seeing is, again, that growth of a community starting from one light, one spark, leading to a raging fire. And it doesn't include just the students here at campus, but those who are alumni or in the community. You are all part of this community. If you're in DC, Maryland, Frederick, you should consider yourself part of this community. And you should know that also there is a society, the Washington Society of Jewish Deaf, whose president, Jeff Cohen, is here tonight. And we'll have the honor of kindling the lights. So I'm going to call Jeff Cohen to the stage to say a few words. I want to thank Yehoshua. One of the things that I try to talk about is the deaf Jewish community coming together. Over the last 4 years, we have actually seen growth in our community. We are planning more events. There's more things to do, more ways to get involved. And we actually brought a new person along to help us. He's here tonight. I'd like to introduce him, bring him to the stage. And he's working right now, but I just want him to wave to everybody. He's the new director at WSJD, and he will have a big role really in coordinating the activities of the community, the Jewish deaf community in the greater DC area. The small, tight-knit community that we are. Even though we all know each other, we don't necessarily get together all the time. So Yehoshua and I want to work together to plan more joint events. I'm in the DC area. Yehoshua is a little bit more of an international person than I am. Wait, so you'll have to convince him to stay here with us. I didn't know you wanted me here. That's a discussion for another time. Absolutely. I'm really honored to be here tonight. WSJD has a number of events, and we will be planning more. Chanukah doesn't stop tonight, remember. We're going to have a happy hour event Thursday evening. That's going to be on the third night of Chanukah. And that's open to all. There will be appetizers, drinks, and we'll have a brief conversation about Chanukah and related to our modern day lives. And if you haven't registered, please do so. We just want to make sure we have enough food for everybody. So far we've had, I think, about 85, so I imagine we'll have over 100. Again, as I said, it's open to all. Unfortunately, not to children. I apologize for that, but we are meeting in a bar, so children are not allowed on the premises. Can't they have apple juice instead? We are also having a family night up in Frederick. There'll be Shabbat dinner, there'll be get-togethers. If you're not on our mailing list, please see me after tonight's event. I will be happy to add your name to the mailing list. We do send out monthly newsletters about our events, and that includes the events that Yehoshua plans as well. Sometimes the events are separate, sometimes they're joint. They're all in that newsletter, so you should get on the list. We are one deaf Jewish community. So with that, I would like to thank Yehoshua for having me here tonight. It's my pleasure. Now, we're not finished with Jeff just yet. He's mentioned community, and I can't stress enough the importance of community. And thank you so much for coming tonight. I know that you had a long day at work, or you're planning dinner, or you're taking care of the kids, and it's kind of rainy outside. There's so many reasons why you could have decided not to come tonight, but you did come. So thank you, because you are a part of this community. And thank you, Jeff, for all the work that you've been doing with WSJD. I look forward to an enhanced partnership. Remember, 1 flame the first night, and then the second 2, and then the third 3, and it never stops. So we grow from 1 light to a whole community. Okay. So are we ready to light the lights of Chanukah? I am ready. So Jeff is going to light the Shamas candle. That's the one that's in the middle. We do need a ladder. I'm going to ask my associates to help with that. Sure you know. Let me hold it for you just this moment. So the shamas has been lit. And that is actually not part of the first night of Hanukkah. That is the supporter candle. That is the candle that lights all the other candles. So we start on the very far right, lighting the first candle for the first night. There are 3 blessings that are said only on the first night. The first one is about the lighting of the candle. The second one is remembering the holiday, the reason for this holiday. And then the third is thanking God for making it possible for us to reach this moment. And that prayer is called the Shehekianu blessing. So what I'm going to ask is, when I say the blessing, you will respond with Amen. Remember we taught that last year, the way to sign it, right? Okay, so that was from Hinda, one of the people who were involved with Ellen doing this artwork, and she came up with that sign. So are you ready? So this is the first blessing. You can see it up on the screen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
It doesn't stop there. You can light candles tomorrow night, and even after the 8 days of Hanukkah are over. You can light the lights in your heart, and you can keep that light glowing all year long. We have a special song that we tend to sing together, so if you would sing along with me, or sign along with me. We kindle these lights to commemorate the miracles that you performed for our forefathers in these days, at this time. Throughout the 8 days of Hanukkah, the lights are sacred, and we are not permitted to make use of them, but only to look at them in order to offer thanks and praise to your great name for your miracles, for your wonders. Amen. Now, what's going to happen next, do you think? Dancing, presenters, or laughing? I think it's time to laugh. Are you ready to laugh? Who's going to make us laugh? I got to tell you, I'm not that funny. But there is somebody who's very funny, and I'm going to ask Sasha to introduce them. Yeah, it's not me. I'm not that funny either. He might be a little bit funnier than me, in fact. I don't know. I wonder if you remember, you know, you said right now that the White House menorah is 30 feet tall, but ours has our cultural mark on it. So I would say that ours is a standout. I know you want to get to the food, but we are going to have a couple more people come up and say something. At least one other person is going to come up, a deaf icon in our community, Lynn Jacobowitz from Frederick. Welcome to the stage. There we go. It's a busy time of year, right? There's a lot going on. What are you doing? Are you cleaning? What'd you say? Cooking latkes, right. How many of you already had a latke this season? Oh, if you haven't, you've got to have a latke. That is the meaning of Hanukkah. I'd say there's no Hanukkah without latkes. You can see the title of my show. Oh, you can't see it on this screen. I can't see it either. Is this okay? I'm calling this the Chanukah. And we know that this is a serious holiday. So you might wonder why I'm here doing a comedy act. But in fact, I did some research and found lots of humor connected with Hanukkah, so I feel justified in being here tonight and offering some laughs for you. So how many ways are there to spell Hanukkah? What do you know? You know 2 different ways? Spell it for me. Oh, I know it's hard for many of you. CH and then something comes after that. Then there's something that ends in an H. There's a double H at the end. Just spelling, just spelling. How many ways? There are more than that. K-H, okay, H-A-N-U-K-K-A-H, okay. There are even other spellings I've seen. In French, they spell it with an O-U-K-A-H. What do they do in Russia? Who's from Russia? And Larissa, how do they spell it with an X to give the Ch sound? Okay. Wow. So, a whole lot of different ways. Well, we have to be thankful for ASL. We've got one sign for Hanukkah, simple, clear, iconic. Probably the rest of the world should follow us. You saw the key post? That's going to be our icon from now on. I'm a little bit tired of the I love you thing. And say, you know, we're gonna go around and say Hanukkah every time. So how many ways to spell Hanukkah? Now, many of you know English. Many of you know ASL. Some of you might know Hebrew, at least a little bit. A couple of you out there? Yeah, sure. Well, obviously you do. You know, some folks in the audience definitely knew. The rabbi spoke Hebrew while he was signing. I didn't know that you were so skilled at sim-comming. It's a feat not easily replicated. Then there's Yiddish. That's a German-influenced Hebrew. How many people still speak Yiddish? Here in the crowd, maybe your grandparents did, sure. But unfortunately, it's not really an active language. There's a new one that we need to talk about, which is deafish. Jewish and deaf people use deafish. So how many of you are deafish out there? Yep. Our community is growing. You're right, Rabbi. This community is booming, and deafish is out there. So the year was 165 BCE, before, not before Christ, but before the Common Era. I'm a bad Jew. So the war that was happening in Syria, the Greeks wanted to take over the land of the Jews, kind of where Israel is now, close to that area. And there were soldiers, and there was turmoil. But it was so dark, it was hard to see. They were seeking light, and they were unsuccessful. And then there was one deaf soldier who found a little bit of oil that lasted for 8 days and enabled them to beat the army. So really, we have to thank deaf people for bringing light to the world. Light is also a symbol of deaf people. We were put on earth for a reason. Deaf people and Jewish people were put on earth for a reason. That's a powerful message. And I think we need to appreciate our light system. Even what we've got right here. We've got this bright Klieg lights. And I don't see any complaints because obviously we need light to be able to see, and back then they needed light as well. So I was doing some research, as I said, getting ready for tonight, and during Hanukkah there is an increase in fires because, you know, a lot of candles are lit and they can fall and things happen. But in the Orthodox community, you can see, I mean, to me it's kind of, you know, a shocking thing. And this, I mean, this menorah is amazing. This is a 9-foot tall menorah. And so I would call that an Orthodox menorah. Would any of you have that in your home? I don't think so. It's too big. It wouldn't be easy to put away and bring out. So I guess we're not Orthodox. But then you could talk about the conservative Jews, the conservative menorah, kind of a medium size. You know, you need a bit of a space for that menorah. My house is a little bit cramped for that size of a menorah, so I guess I can't have a conservative menorah. Then there's the Reform menorah, and that's a little tiny menorah. A little bit hard to see. Hard to sign by that kind of light. So I kept looking for the perfect menorah. I came up with the deaf menorah. Light bulbs. All over the house. That's the perfect menorah for deaf people. So can we make one with light bulbs next year? Can we use electricity? Wow. So this is oil and electricity? All right. So next year I'm going to say 25 to 50% increase of fires, because you know oil, electricity, not a good mix. Finally, I wanted to come up with a poem with an A to Z story. Now you know that ABC stories are generally every letter of the alphabet, the hand shapes of every letter of the alphabet. That's not actually how I'm going to do it. And the reason is that's actually sort of following English word order, and I want to follow ASL hand shapes. So I'm going to share with you a story. It's not a poem, it's a story, and it will not be interpreted. So please enjoy the visual nature of this story. now the food is available. Thank you, Lynn. So good to see you. Wonderful job always. You know, if Lynn is going to be here, you're going to have a great time. You're going to laugh. You're going to have a spiritual evening. So thank you, Lynn. And Rabbi Yehoshua has a couple more words for us. Many thanks. The reason I forgot to advance the slides is that I was so taken with your stories. So sorry about that. You announced that the food is ready, but actually you can't have any food because the food's not quite ready. Before we eat, we want to officially close the program. We want to have a couple of closing remarks. I want to thank all of you for coming this evening. I'm really moved by the crowd that came out. And many of you came despite all the reasons you might have had not to come. I want to remind you of the power of community, the power of one light leading to a strong community. The symbolism of Chanukah. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all the sponsors for tonight's event. American Friends of Lubavitch, Chabad. So thanks to them. WSJD, the Washington Society of Jewish Deaf. Jeff Cohen is the president of that organization. He spoke earlier, so thank you to them for sponsoring tonight's event. I don't even know if Jeff's, oh, there you are in the back. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of the people who helped behind the scenes. This event wouldn't have been possible without the help of lots of logistical help. Yoel Krigsman, we have the Maccabee soldiers, we have the dreidel, we have the interpreters. I want to thank really everybody who's involved with this event. And if I've forgotten anybody, please, excuse me, let me know, certainly. I certainly don't want to forget anybody who helped out. Thank you to Kelby, too, and Jennifer for interpreting for our deafblind attendees. Thank you so much for being here and for being willing to volunteer. Before we end, I want to remind you of the power of the light. Remember that when you go home tonight, or whether you're driving or on the train, if you take away one thing from tonight's event, remember the light, the power of light. And use that as an inspiration for the rest of the year until we meet again next year at Chanukah. We're going to do it again, absolutely. It will be our 3rd annual. Don't miss it. And remember that power and how it can grow. And secondly, light is nothing if it doesn't lead to action. So when you go home tonight, I want you to think about the light. Think about your action. You've got to actually do the kindling of the menorah at home. Light it for the first night. Say the blessing. We practiced it earlier this evening. And if you don't have a menorah, don't worry. We actually have menorah kits to give out. The Maccabees are standing right by them. So bring a kit home with you if you don't have a menorah already at home. Make sure we increase the light in the world through our actions. That's the most important lesson of Chanukah. This one, unfortunately, is not available, but we do have the smaller kits for you. I want to say to you, Happy Chanukah. Thank you for coming tonight, and enjoy the food.